The gardener lived in a small house at the edge of town, where the streets grew quiet and the air carried the smell of earth after rain. His backyard was not large, just a square of soil framed by wooden fencing, but it was the space he cherished most. Every morning he rose before the sun and walked outside with his watering can, moving slowly between the rows he had planted. The garden looked ordinary to most eyes, patches of bare soil, a few green shoots here and there, nothing that could catch the attention of passers-by. But to him, each seed he had placed in the earth carried hope. He bent down carefully, loosening the soil around them, brushing away fallen leaves, speaking softly to the tender stems. His hands bore calluses, not from heavy labor but from steady devotion, the kind that repeats itself day after day. He was not a man of many words. Neighbors who saw him from their windows often wondered why he bothered with a garden that seemed so reluctant to grow. For weeks, little changed. Shoots barely stretched above the soil, and at times the patch seemed no different from the day he first laid the seeds. Yet he continued with his ritual watering, pruning, waiting. Inside, though, he felt the slow weight of silence. There were moments when he stared at the earth and asked himself why nothing seemed to respond to his effort. The world outside his fence rushed on, people hurrying to work, cars streaming down the streets, new shops opening and closing. Yet here, in this square of earth, time seemed to stand still. But perhaps that was why he came back each day. The garden asked him to pause, to kneel, to lower his pace to the rhythm of growth. Even as doubt whispered to him, something in his heart resisted giving up. The soil, after all, hid its secrets in silence. He just didn't know yet whether those secrets were worth waiting for. As days passed, his neighbors stopped paying attention to the quiet man with the watering can. But within him, an invisible struggle was beginning. He wanted to believe his care meant something. He wanted to see a sign that patience was not just wasted time. Yet for now, all he had was the empty stillness of soil and the fragile hope that beneath it, life was quietly gathering its strength. The weeks stretched longer, and the gardener began to feel the quiet pressure of doubt. Each morning he tended to the soil, yet the changes were so small they seemed almost invisible. A few leaves curled upward, but there were no blossoms, no colors to show his effort was worth it. Sometimes, as he stood with the watering can in hand, he felt as though the garden was mocking him with its silence. There were evenings when he sat on the back step, staring at the patch of earth. As the sun lowered behind the fence, a heaviness settled in his chest, the kind that whispered, perhaps this was all for nothing. Perhaps patience was just another word for wasted time. One afternoon, his elderly neighbor leaned over the fence. The woman had silver hair tied neatly back and eyes that carried the weight of years. She had watched him quietly, noticing how often he lingered, how his shoulders drooped more each day. She spoke gently, telling him that growth never shows itself to the impatient. The roots, she said, must anchor themselves in silence before flowers can rise to the light. Her words lingered in his mind long after she had gone back inside. That night, he lay awake thinking about them, roots hidden deep in the soil, stretching, searching, unseen but alive. It was a picture he could not shake. He realized that what he was tending was not only the garden, but also his own ability to wait. The next morning, when he stepped outside, he noticed the soil differently. The tiny shoots no longer seemed like failures. They were quiet promises, working in ways his eyes could not yet see. He still felt the ache of impatience, but now it was softened by a thought. Perhaps this season was teaching him something greater than the flowers he hoped for. So, he kept going. His hands returned to the soil, not with desperation but with a steadier rhythm. Water dripped onto the ground like small blessings, each one a reminder that patience was not emptiness but a slow kind of trust. For the first time, he began to feel less like he was waiting for something to arrive, and more like he was learning how to stay present with what was already here. The garden had not yet bloomed, but something within him had begun to shift. The restless urgency quieted. The soil, once a mirror of disappointment, was now becoming a teacher, whispering its lessons in silence. The days grew warmer, and with them came the first true signs of change. One morning, as the gardener stepped into his yard, he froze. Tiny buds had formed along the stems, small and delicate, yet unmistakable. He knelt close, touching them lightly, as if afraid they might vanish. After months of silence, the earth was finally answering. Each day afterward, more buds appeared, swelling and opening slowly into blossoms. The garden transformed almost overnight. Bright colors spread across the soil, petals opening wide to the sunlight. The air grew heavy with fragrance, and bees hovered lazily above the blooms. What once had looked like empty soil now sang with life. He stood in the middle of it all, watering can in hand, but this time his heart was not weighed down by waiting. Instead, it lifted with a quiet joy. He realized the blossoms were more than flowers. They were proof that his patience had not been wasted. Every moment of tending, every doubt he had endured, had led to this. Yet what surprised him most was the feeling within himself. The beauty of the garden was undeniable, but deeper still was the calm that had taken root in his own heart. He no longer looked at time as an enemy to outrun. Instead, he felt the strength of being able to wait, to trust the unseen, to believe that life moves at its own rhythm. Standing there, surrounded by the blooms, he smiled. The garden had given him flowers, yes, but also something far greater. It had given him peace of mind, a lesson that rushing could never have taught him. The blossoms would one day wither, as all flowers do, but the stillness and patience he had learned would remain within him, steady and unshaken. For the first time in many months, he did not wonder about tomorrow or worry about what he could not yet see. He simply breathed in the scent of his flowers and let the moment be enough. Patience is not just about waiting for the right season. It is about learning to trust the hidden roots, the unseen work that time quietly shapes. The gardener discovered that what blooms outside is only half the gift. What blooms inside is what truly lasts. In your own life, when the wait feels too long, remember that patience may be planting peace within you even before you see the first flower. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need the reminder. And if you'd like more gentle tales that inspire reflection, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel.